Today I was doing a research-informed look at the non-attendance of neurodivergent children at school. So you look at the stats around this, and I looked at research from different countries, and there's differences in what you find, but not as many differences as you'd think. But if you take a broad overview, what we can see very clearly is that neurodivergent children don't go to school as much as non-neurodivergent children. And when this is your experience, when it's your child not going to school or a child not coming to your school, the experience feels really personal. It's really frightening. Your child is really distressed. You're really powerless. There's people to point at you. So it's because those staff don't understand. It's because that teacher made an issue of something. It's because those parents are not parenting effectively enough. It's because the child is making bad choices. They just need to be motivated, to be praised for coming to school or punished for not coming to school, or they need to build resilience. And mentally ill, there's any number of these situations. But those very personal experiences are part of a much broader pattern, and however personal it feels and however specific to that parent or that professional, recognizing that that very personal experience is an example of a much bigger thing gives us reason to step back and go, oh, hang on a minute. Like, is this not just this parent? It's not just this member of staff. There's something bigger going on here. And what the numbers sort of testify to is that this is a structural inequality. It's an inequality built into the system. And where structural inequalities exist, you quite often meet narratives that blame the experience of prejudice on the people experiencing that prejudice. So, like when children grow up in poverty, you get narratives that say these children are naughty, these children are lazy, these children are sort of criminally minded. And the narrative that surrounds neurodivergent children is that they are mentally ill. We say there's something, or mentally fragile, which is not to say that neurodivergent children are not mentally ill, but it's not a chicken and egg question. It's not, were they mentally ill and then they didn't go to school, or was it they went to school and then they became mentally ill? It was that way around. Like, we know which way around it is. It's not our children were fine and then they were not fine. And we use terms to point to this issue that are highly problematic. So when we point to this issue of neurodivergent children not going to school, we call it school refusal, school avoidance, emotionally based, I forget what that one is, not going to schoolness. Those terms are not asking what the problem is. They're not even really looking at the problem. They're pre-decided what the problem is. Within that term is the answer. What's the problem here? Somebody's refusing. Who's refusing? The child is refusing. They're making a choice. They're doing a thing. It makes it sound like it's behaviour. And that is a bigger misunderstanding, where neurodivergence is understood as patterns of behaviour rather than recognised as a neurodivergence, as a different type of brain. This is something that people are being, not something that people are doing. And the statistics around the non-attendance at school of neurodivergent people tell you that it's not a matter of one child needing to build their resilience, or one family needing to get up earlier in the morning, or one teacher with an attitude, or it's none of that. It's that these environments are not accessible or have significant barriers to access for neurodivergent children. And you can do the cheesy thing of translating it onto, imagine a child who's a wheelchair user being told to go to a school, but the school is at the top of the flight of steps and there's no ramp and there's no lift. When that child doesn't go to school, would we say they are refusing to go to school? Or would we recognise that their non-attendance is because of barriers they face? And when it's a wheelchair user facing steps, it's really sort of obvious because we can see the steps and we can see the wheels. But there are very real barriers that neurodivergent children face when trying to access our education settings. And those barriers are what is causing the non-attendance, not the children, not the parents, not the staff. These narratives of blame, they're harming everybody. And they're serving a kind of hidden population of people who have the power to create structural change, whilst those of us who are suffering under the structural inequalities argue amongst ourselves and point fingers at each other and blame the teachers, blame the parents, blame the children. It kind of keeps us occupied and we don't all turn around and go, hey, this isn't fair. As a keynote on stage today that had a lot more references and lasted about an hour. So I'm never any good at making short videos. 7 minutes, not bad.